thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate you coming out. Welcome to the Final Fantasy VII Appreciation Panel. Don't worry about the question mark at the name of this panel. Don't worry about it. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's going to happen. Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Phil Salvador. I am the Library Director of the Video Game History Foundation. We are a nonprofit here in the Bay Area in California. Some of you were here earlier for my panel about the library we're building. But we like to say at the Video Game History Foundation, we do a couple things. We preserve history, but we also celebrate it. And today is a celebration of a game that I think a lot of people obviously are very familiar with. I think the crowd for MAGFest especially and this themed event is something that people that like this game. So I just want to do, before we get started, a quick roll call. I know there's so many versions of Final Fantasy VII, so I just want to see which ones people actually like. OG Final Fantasy VII, obviously we got people who love that one, okay. The remake trilogy so far, people good on that? Okay, we got a fan back there. We got a fan. We all love the Champ songs the best. Stamp is the Stamp. Great song. Are there actually any Advent Children fan here? Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that one I feel like it was a big deal, and then it kind of over time has kind of come down. Okay. We got any Zap stands? What about Crisis Core? Folks love Crisis Core? Okay, great. I feel like that one's really picked up in the last couple of years for fans. Now we're looking for the real sickos. Dirge of Cerberus. We got people who actually. Has anyone in this room played Dirge of Cerberus? Okay, we got a couple. Yeah, you bet that your reaction spoke volumes. Okay, great. Well, this is great. I'm glad you're all here. This is a great crowd for this because I'm really excited because I lied to you. This panel is not about Final Fantasy VII. This panel is about Final Fantasy VIII, the best Final Fantasy game. That's right. That's fucking right. Come on up here. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for coming to the real. You're all cowards. Thank you for coming to the real panel. Final Fantasy VIII is the best Final Fantasy game, and here's why. That's right. Thank you for coming. You know me, I'm Phil. Would you please introduce our second panelist today?
Is this on?
It's on.
Okay, hi. I'm Ann Lady McDivitt. There's a PhD after my name because I have one of those. And I am a huge Final Fantasy VIII fan, and I'm ready to talk about it.
So together we run a very real website that is called Final Fantasy VIII is the best, and if you don't agree, I will destroy you. You can visit it at this real URL, ff8isthe.best. So I started with the domain name and worked backwards from what I wanted to do. But this is a real website you can visit that's just kind of screaming about this video game.
A lot of screaming.
A lot of screaming. So why the hell are we doing this panel? So it is the 25th anniversary of this game. Final Fantasy VIII turned 25 on September 9th, and it's a game that we really love. We know that people are kind of down on this game and aren't huge fans of it, but we think this game, yeah, show some respect, please. Thank you. But we know this game has kind of a sour reputation, so we want to talk about that today. I'm going to stop this now. We want to talk about a couple things. First off, we want to talk about why people don't like this game, because it's gotten a really bad reputation in the last couple years specifically. And we're not going to talk about like the specific reasons people like it, but the historiography of why people came to dislike it over time. Al's going to take things over and just yell about why it's a great game for a while, because it's a great game. And then we're going to kind of end on a personal note. It's a game we have a strong personal connection with, so we have some thoughts about that. But periodically, we did want to maximize all of our screaming, so... Oh yeah, actually, that's a good question. Who here has not played Final Fantasy VIII? Really quick show of hands.
Oh, shit.
All right, you, congratulations. You just won a copy of Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh,
yeah! It is the Japanese version, so you will need to have a Japanese PlayStation and learn Japanese. I'm sorry. Okay, we went to the marketplace earlier and cleaned out all their copies of Final Fantasy VIII.
In Japanese.
Okay, so we're gonna get things started, but we did want to also get some hot takes in, so periodically we're gonna interrupt each other with some hot takes, such as...
Irving is a good character because he is a soft boy. He's kind of the lovable scumbag of the group, and that's one of the archetypes that I really dig. But also, like, there's so much growth with this character. You have to think about it. He's the only one that actually remembers anything about what they went through as kids until a certain point. And so he's struggling to figure out, how do I deal with this fucking situation where I have to kill somebody who raised me? None of my friends recognize me. I'm kind of in love with a girl with a short dress because she's pretty rad. And Irving is good, and you're wrong if you dislike him. You're wrong.
We're not going to get into that during this panel. I cut out my Irving sucks slides for your sake, so... Okay.
He's a good character, and his cowboy outfit rules.
Okay, a couple things before we start. So first off, even though I introduced myself from the VGHF, I want to make it clear we are speaking for ourselves. This does not represent the official position of VGHF or your employer, who you have not disclosed during this panel.
Yeah, I don't speak for Stanford, so don't talk to Stanford about this.
We speak independently. The other thing, we originally scheduled this panel for midnight, but we bumped it forward because the slot opened and we figured more people would show up. Shit's gonna get real during this panel. There are at least 2 moments in this panel where we threaten to kill people in the audience. So,
It's true.
So, we're gonna fucking get into this. So, let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Part 1. This is true, by the way. People liked Final Fantasy until about 2007. People might not know this, especially if you were not there when it came out, given how divisive it is now. Final Fantasy VIII was a huge fucking deal. When this game came up, keep in mind, it was a follow-up to one of the biggest video games ever. This is a selection of some of the covers of magazines that had it, like full, giant, beautiful, original art celebrating this game. People were psyched like you would not believe. People got kind of weird with it, too. I want to point out in the back there, PSM in the back was a magazine that had a lot of original artists, and they got really fucking weird with it. There was one artist in their magazine named Ryan Kinnaird, who is maybe the horniest person ever employed by a video game magazine. This is some of the art he published in his magazine. That's Squall rapping with Renoa and Quistis. I totally unprompted. I don't know why that's in there. This one's for the Trekkies here. I feel this too. As someone who loves Star Trek and Final Fantasy VIII, I hate this so much. I forgot that 8 was on at the same time as Voyager. It's awful. This is some of the least horny art this guy did. Just after the panel, Google Ryan Kinnaird PSM in private browsing mode, and you'll find some other stuff that's pretty horrible. But the people were going nuts to this game. And again, to talk about PSM, they had this column here that was called Banzai Chibi-chan's Nihon Game Otaku, where he says, Konnichiwa Otaku, and just screaming about Final Fantasy VIII in all caps. I can feel your souls escaping your body right now as you're reading this. The moral of this is that PSM was not okay. They were weird, but people got weird about it. People were really into this game and really psyched about it. And so was Squaresoft. Final Fantasy VII, obviously, huge deal, huge marketing campaign for this game. 8, though, they knew it was going to be a huge deal. After the success of 7, they were like, all right, we're going to do a big campaign for this game. We've got all this stuff. So they made a shitload of merchandise. They made some really weird merchandise, too, that I've never seen for any other game, like this official Final Fantasy VIII lighter.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. You have the lighter?
I have the lighter.
That's amazing. Oh, my God.
Hell
They sell for like $300 now. Oh my God, that's incredible. It's a collector's item now. I don't have one. I don't smoke, and this is a tangent to talk about something else. Do folks remember the game Clax for any, like, various systems? Okay, they made, this is real merchandise, Clax cigarettes. I don't understand, but I have a recurring nightmare about being forced to smoke the Clax cigarettes. This is a nightmare that video game archivists have. If I have to smoke the Clax cigarettes, I want to use the Final Fantasy VIII lighter. Like, that's, if I must, I'm going to do that. But that's not all, though. That's not all the merch. They made a shitload of action figures. These are photos from Al's collection. These are just the ones she has. There are 7 separate selfie figurines in this picture, and there's probably more. Again, just a small fraction. They made so much merchandise for this game, and a lot of it didn't make a lot of sense. They also made a Final Fantasy VIII business card holder, which I have.
Well,
Yeah! There's a lot of weird shit you can get. So obviously there was a lot of hype. That doesn't necessarily mean this was a well-received game. But here's the thing. People fucking loved this game when it came out. Reviews were good. Here's some of the reviews from magazines at the time, calling it like a masterpiece. And Edge in the corner says it's the game that convinced them that video games are art, essentially. So here's the thing. I understand that there's a hype cycle. People get excited about a game, give it a good review. A year or two later, they come down on it. Final Fantasy XIII, we kind of saw what happened with that. Good reviews in the press. Everyone soured on it very fast. This game had as high of expectations as you could possibly have. It was following up on like the biggest, one of the most well-received video games of all time. And even still, people loved it. All these reviews are saying it's as good, if not better than 7. The reviews were like, is it as good as 7 or is it not? The lowest review I could find was this review. I called it merely great, gave it a 4 out of 5 from Next Gen Magazine. I think, some of the issues they brought up are reasonable. Like, the summon animations are long. Like, okay, that's fair. I get that.
But there's a boost, so it's useful.
There's a boost. It's a mini game you can play while you're playing the game.
It's useful.
But, you know, it's like, I get that. But really quick, by the way, I want to mention just game magazines. This issue of GamePro that covered Final Fantasy VIII is my favorite game magazine cover ever. This is the most 1999 thing I've ever seen in my... I want a t-shirt with this on it. It's incredible. It's amazing. But here's the thing. So talking more about press coverage, though, I think one thing that really bugs me now is that people talk about how Final Fantasy VIII has a story that makes no sense and it sucks. People didn't think that back then when the game came out. Here's first review. This is from Electronic Gaming Monthly that describes the story as being gripping and coherent, which is not the greatest. You know, but it's still like they liked it. They said Final Fantasy VIII's character development is the best of any RPGs I've ever played. Here's another one, PS Extreme Magazine, that said that the storyline in Final Fantasy VIII is tighter and makes more sense than Final Fantasy VII's. At the time, people thought 7's story didn't make sense and that 8's was better in some respects. My favorite, PC Accelerator Magazine, one of the most sexist, shitty video game magazines of all time, said that unlike its predecessor, it has some semblance of an intelligent plot. Harsh word. Point being, it was not universally accepted. It was not controversial to say this game had a good story back in the day. People really did think that. But I know what people are thinking. This is the professional critics. It's the elitist game journalists, right? And obviously, the community are the ones who turned on it. If you go to like message boards and stuff, people were mad. People were furious that it wasn't 7, and there were changes, and the fan community didn't like it either. That's not true, and I can prove it. I went back to Game FAQs, and I tallied up every review of Final Fantasy VIII circa 2006. I'll admit, not the most rational place on earth, Game FAQs, but this was the heart of the video game community. And guess what? There were enough to do some data analysis. We're bringing fucking Microsoft Excel into this. We're going to look at some data visualization. This is the distribution of all the review scores for Final Fantasy VIII. And as you can see, there's the haters on the lower end. 2/3 of reviews for this game on Game FAQs were 9s or 10s. People like this game. And if this isn't enough, I have more evidence. So I went to RP Gamer. This was one of the early RPG community websites. And here's their staff reviews. A 9.5, a 9, and oh heaven forbid, a 7. That's pretty good from like a hardcore specialty RPG website. But I want to plant some seeds for what's going to come up later. If you visit RP Gamer now, you get something a little different. There's another staff review that gives it a 1.5 and says the game is like being sprayed with napalm. There's also a quote where they say, and I quote, "The story of Final Fantasy VIII has attained infamy for its dazzling incompetence," which is weird because we just saw people liked it. People liked the story. But this review didn't pop up until 2010. I wonder what happened between 2006 and 2010 that turned people against this game. Hold on to that thought. We're going to get back to that in a little bit. The point of this is that people liked this game and it was a success, and I have more data to back this up. I took this out of the VGHF archives. If you missed our panel earlier, you missed out. It was great. We have not shown this before. We have historical sales data as of 2001. Final Fantasy XVIII was the 19th best-selling PS1 game as of 2001. Very close in sales to both Tomb Raiders, to Twisted Metal 2. It sold better than any single version of Resident Evil. It sold better than Medal of Honor. It sold better than any NFL football game in the United States. This is just US data here. And that's not even accounting for the supposed 6 million copies it sold in Japan. This game was a blockbuster and people responded well to it and liked it. You have something you want to say, Al?
I do. Shiva had no fucking right to be this hot. Like, look at her. I'm pretty sure this was like a bi-awakening for me. That I was like, oh man, this lady is hot. So you were talking about the long GF animations? I did not give a fuck because look at her. I will boost all the time for Shiva. That's it.
So the point of this is that Final Fantasy VIII was a big deal. It's one of the crown jewels of Square's, like, their whole library. Like, it showed up in Kingdom Hearts. They brought characters in. You told me they renamed this character purposely to preserve the surprise of Squall being in Kingdom Hearts. People liked it. When Sony unveiled the PlayStation 2, one of their first tech demos was a real-time demo of the dance from Final Fantasy VIII. This is my holy grail. I want the PS2 disc with this on it. The point being, it was this notable, beautiful thing. Square and Sony and everyone valued this game. It was not this divisive game back at the time. It was a blockbuster. It was well-received. People loved it. But then people moved on. And here's the thing. That's not surprising or wrong. You have to consider when this game came out, what was going on with video games at the time, specifically with Square. They had an incredible run. In 1999, Final Fantasy XVIII came out, and then they annualized the franchise. In 2009 came out, then 10 came out, and then Kingdom Hearts came out in back-to-back years. And you also have to consider that while this was happening, the PS2 came out, no one cared about PS1 games anymore. Games did not have the sort of indefinite shelf life they can have today. I think people talked about them longer, but it wasn't like a GTA 5 scenario where you just keep republishing the game over and over forever. So obviously everyone moved on. By the time the PS3 came around, like nobody gave a shit about this, right? People were moving on to the next generation. So by the time the PS3 hit, no one's talking about this game anymore. It just kind of went into neutral in people's minds. Also, all this shit we just talked about earlier happened. But no, seriously, like Square invested in Final Fantasy VII as a sub-brand instead of continuing to like make they had not previously gone back and made sequels to their earlier Final Fantasy games, but now they were, and they were investing in 7 as a brand and merchandising it and making movies. It was a well-known blockbuster. So yeah, in the popular imagination of the PS1 era games, Final Fantasy VII was the biggest one. It makes sense. People cared about this game. 8, not so much. It was just one of the other ones that came out and people moved on. So that's why the enthusiasm cooled around this game. But that doesn't explain why people hate Final Fantasy VIII the way they do today and the way it's divisive. So if we want to talk about that negative shift, we got to talk about this guy right here. Okay, so some people seem to know this person. This guy's a YouTuber named Spoony. He's wearing a Final Fantasy VIII Sucks shirt, which I kind of wanted to get one of those, but they're not for sale anymore. Before we go any further, I just want to be upfront about this. I'm going to harshly criticize this man's work. I am not trying to attack them as a human being. I do not presume to know who they are. Please leave them be. Please do not harass them. That is not the point of this panel. I'm not trying to do a call out or start drama. I'd prefer not to talk about this, but if we want to talk about the shifting opinion around this game, we have to talk about this guy and the videos he made. So just be clear about that going in. If you don't know him, this guy was one of the first generations of video game YouTubers. He was the first one to do videos that were mixing gaming commentary with sketches. Everyone's seen videos like that, that's sort of just like buffoonery and all that stuff. He was one of the earliest people to do it, and one of his first big videos was a 3-hour-long multi-part video about Final Fantasy VIII that came out in 2007. I've heard people for years describe this game as this video as being really fun and amazing. I went back and Jesus fucking Christ, it is the cringiest thing I've seen in my life. It is it's like internet bro humor from 2007. It's trying way too hard. It's very CinemaSins style, just trying to find plot holes and making, it's the kind of stuff I did when I was 12 years old, but didn't record it and put it on the internet. But here's the thing. It's also, and this is one reason I feel okay piling on, it is incredibly misogynistic and homophobic, like you would not believe. Real incel shit in this video. The first 10-minute video is just him being Squall's gay, whacking off to Quist, not even caring about the game. My favorite example is later on when you meet Renoa and you get to name her. Without prompting, he called her a whore. Real edgy. I didn't know JD Vance was doing Final Fantasy Let's Plays. Jesus Christ. Yeah, but seriously, JD Vance hits women. But that's not the worst part, though. So here's the other thing. He doesn't know how to play the game. He has all these things about how the game makes no sense. He doesn't know how any of the systems work. This is 10 minutes sped up of him just drawing magic over and over from the easiest enemy of the game because he doesn't know how to play it correctly. And then talks about how it's too confusing. Bro, whose problem is that? It's like the video of the guy struggling at Cuphead. It's that same kind of energy. He even points out in his later videos that all the comments are you don't know how to play this game. What are you doing? You're playing this wrong. To which he responded oh, you guys are basically losers for doing the tutorial.
Honestly, it's sad how intensely some of you guys have studied and mastered this piece of crap.
That was his response to people saying hey, you should read the manual before you play this game. The point being, this guy was thrown for content. He said the game mechanics didn't make any sense because he didn't know how to play the game. He said the plot is stupid and the characters are stupid because he was too busy making dick jokes or whatever. But first off, who cares? This is a 17-year-old YouTube video. It's we shouldn't be judged by the stupidest thing we made years ago. Whatever, I get it. The problem is that this video has ended up being very important to the history of Final Fantasy VII, and it's ended up being ground zero for so much of the hate the game has gotten over the years. 8. Did I say 8?
You said 7.
7. Good God. Excuse me. I'm talking very fast right now. What point is, we're going to explore why, though. We're going to explore how this happened, but Al's got a hot take first.
I do. The soundtrack for Final Fantasy VIII is absolutely, hands down, the best soundtrack of any Final Fantasy game, period. The Extreme clears One Winged Angel. It is so fucking good. Listen to this. Go back and listen to it with headphones especially, because in this initial part of it, it moves through your head, and it's so fucked. It's incredible. This soundtrack is so good. You listen to any of the fighting themes, incredible. Man with Machine Gun, what the fuck?
Amazing. amazing. So good.
It's so good. This is yes. Yes.
I was hanging out with the Buy Score people earlier, and Carrie did a remix just called Man with a Gun, and it's just Man with a machine gun with just gunshots over every instrument. It's amazing. Listen to it. It's great.
The soundtrack rules.
Okay. So I'm actually just kidding. We're going to go on a tangent for a second and talk about video game history to give you a little context on stuff. We're going to do a trivia question here. You all know the answer. Shout this out. What game was so bad that it crashed the video game industry in 1983 and killed Atari? That's what you think. That's the story you know.
Incorrect.
Why do you know that story? Do you know that story because of a book that came out in 2001 called The Ultimate History of Video Games by a guy named Stephen Kent? This is where the E.T. story comes from, and I can tell you it is on page 239 of this book. This is the part right here where he explains that E.T. was infamously bad for its dull gameplay and disappointing story and had to get buried in a landfill, and they lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, this might be news to some people, but like Al just said, this is not really what happened. The game industry was already falling apart. Atari was already on the rocks. E.T. is not to blame for this. In this, it talks about how it's infamously bad. E.T. was not the worst game that month.
Nope.
This is from a magazine called Electronic Fun with Computers and Games, I believe was the name of it. E.T. gets 2.5 joysticks. I don't know out of what, maybe 1,000. It's not clear. But I don't know what Skyjinx is. It got 2. It got less than E.T. The critics at the time, the professional critics, thought there were worse games than E.T. To the public, it was not a notably bad title. People weren't avoiding this game because of the disappointing story or anything like that. You know what happened was Atari arrogantly thought this game was going to sell millions of copies while the game market was already struggling. So they fucked up real bad. They overproduced this game, and the losses hit them. In Kent's book, he interviewed a lot of Atari executives who wanted to pass off the failures onto other people, specifically the programmers and other execs. So Pac-Man and E.T. became their easy scapegoats. So this game was infamous, but it was only infamous to the coked-up Atari executives who didn't know their own business was circling the drain at the time. Oh. So I don't fault Stephen Kent on this. He was doing what he could at the time. He was, interviewing people. He was the first one to really do a book at this scale. You're obviously, anytime you write something, you're going to get inaccuracies. I'm writing a book about the history of MAGFest, who created SimCity and The Sims. I guarantee I'm going to get stuff wrong. It happens. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because this book was incredibly influential. It was heavily promoted and endorsed in the video game industry and got taken very seriously. Here's the reviews from all these notable John Romero and Arakawa from Nintendo. On the left there, this comes from our archives. If you were at our panel earlier, we have a bunch of guidebooks from E3. He did a signing at E3 for this book. The industry was excited and happy to promote it. So even if you've never heard of this book, you are being forced to respond to it. Anytime something like E.T. comes up, we're always negotiating that story on the terms that were initially established by the first person who was able to set up a narrative.
I threatened to fight somebody over it once.
You did threaten to fight someone over it once.
It's true.
I like to think of this as being the first mover advantage of criticism in these cases, where if you get to a new audience and you get to break through and set the narrative for them, you get to define the terms in which people discuss these things. So that's what happened here with E.T. We're going to take a quick aside, though, because you've got a real hot take.
Real hot take. The love triangle in Final Fantasy VIII is so much better than the love triangle in Final Fantasy VII, and it has the exact same tropes. If you think about it, Renoa has the X, which is kind of like the situation with Aerith and Zack, and Squall is the new guy, Cloud. Tifa is more of a Quistis type character.
I always said Quistis. How do you pronounce it?
It's Quistis.
Oh, well, fuck, okay.
It's Quistis. It's Quistis. So anyway, the point is, this one is actually good because they actually follow through instead of having this weird, choose your own waifu situation. They actually are allowed to have character depth and growth because everything with this triangle, square, whatever you want to call it, is actually resolved. Whereas we're still fucking fighting about the Final Fantasy VII one, and I'm tired of it. You guys need to quit.
I love that video of Robert Pattinson trying to explain it to
Trying to explain
Kravitz.
it.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's so good. It's so good.
Okay, so we talked about the ET stuff, and now we're coming to YouTube. We're going to bring this all together, everything I just ranted about here. YouTube was a new breakthrough communications medium for a new audience. When YouTube started happening, more people were online than ever before, and there were a lot of people who weren't online in the late 90s, people who weren't talking all the time about old video games, people who weren't on game FAQs. It was a new, impressionable audience, so for people watching YouTube content about video games, a lot of the times it may have been the first time they were really engaging with that kind of content. So like the angry video game nerd, right? Like if we talk about games like okay, not even like any merit side of angry video game nerd. Like if we talk about like Friday the 13th or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or any of these things, we still think about his videos. Like the only no one had thought about the Friday the 13th video game. Nobody cared about that. But because he brought it up, he really established the narrative like, hey, this game really sucks. And so anytime we talk about it, we're still in conversation, whether we know it or not, with these 20-year-old videos by the angry video game nerd. For good or bad, that's just kind of how that happens. It happens for me. I write a blog about unusual old games, and it's very interesting to see when I write about something nobody's talked about in a long time, to see my own thoughts copied and echoed in another article somebody writes 5 years later. Like, this is what happens. So this is what happened with the Final Fantasy VIII video. Spoonie's videos were really popular in the early YouTube era. And looking at this specifically, this is still up and has almost 1 million views. For early YouTube, that is a shitload of views. Like, that's a huge deal. And remember, circa 2007, nobody was really thinking about this game anymore. People had moved on. It wasn't in the front of people's minds. So you're reaching an audience that maybe hasn't thought about Final Fantasy VIII since they played it 8 years ago, maybe had some thoughts that hadn't really settled about it and now had this very negative voice, or people who never played it at all, who were younger and teenagers who didn't play it when they were, 8 years old or whatever. And this is how the backlash to the game started, because this video series completely reset the conversation around this game. We've established it had a very glowing reception, and then it kind of, went off into idle after people moved on to other things. But long after, time has passed, long after people have continued watching this video, we're still in conversation with it because of the impact that it had. Nobody really remembers that this game was well received, and it's really interesting to look at comments today from people who don't know that this game was well received when it came out. People who are like, why do we hate this game? I think it's pretty good. Not understanding it had positive reception, and that changed about 17 years ago. I think, unfortunately, what happened with these videos is that, again, like the ET thing, whether we know it or not today, we are still in conversation with this cultural vandalism that happened 17 years ago, where this dude just dragged this game through the mud for the sake of making sexist jokes. Fuck that, okay? We can do better than that shit. That's why we're here today, because Final Fantasy VIII is good.
Yeah. Woo!
And that's what Al's talking about next. I'm going to hand things over, and you're going to take it from here to talk about why this game is good.
All right. Scared the shit out of me. All right. This game has the most real emotion of any Final Fantasy game, except Final Fantasy X too, because that one has a song literally called Real Emotion.
It's true.
Okay. So the memory twist was always there. You just didn't read. So here are all the examples of where it talks about GF and memory loss. There are so many examples in here where the characters can talk to people and they'll explain. Even people who are your teachers will explain, like, oh no, that's propaganda. You shouldn't listen to that. That's weird. Selphie in her diary talks about how she's worried about the memory loss of GF. You just didn't fucking read if you didn't understand that this was a thing. That memory twist was always set up. And as you mentioned, it's better than the memory twist with Zack.
I still don't fucking understand what's happening with the Zack thing.
That feeling no GF. I just had to. Okay, all of it makes sense, except Norg, because he's just there. What the fuck is he even doing there? Who feeds him? Do they hear noises in the basement occasionally just shrug it off? Why does Norg have so much money anyway? What the fuck is Norg? Does anybody know?
Does anyone know what Norg is? This is a serious question.
I know
What's Norg?
He's from the Shoot.
No, I mean, what is he? Why does he exist?
He's from the Shumi village.
I don't know, he's just some guy in the basement for some reason.
There you go.
See? All of it makes
He's the
sense.
administrator.
He funded it. I think he's rich or something. He's Java.
He was doing Bitcoin or something really early on.
Like I said, why does he have so much money anyway? It doesn't make any sense. He's the only thing that doesn't make sense in this game. Okay, the story of it, wow, it's actually a good metaphor for childhood trauma and memory loss. Imagine that with literal child soldiers and Renoa as your main squad. So actually, let's get a little dark here for a moment. There is a real thing with childhood trauma that you can experience extreme memory loss. And you think about this, you are playing as child soldiers who are already traumatized before they even started going to the school to become child soldiers. These are really fucked up kids. And so it's a great metaphor to think about it. Like, this memory thing has a reason.
I'm going to jump in real quick and say that Triple Triad is the only good minigame. Just in general, it's the best. I have a very controversial take. I'm not a minigame person. I'm sorry, Al, I don't play fishing minigames. I'm not into it. I skipped most of the minigames. Yeah, I welcome your hate. Yeah.
Fishing mini games.
But here's the thing, like, in general, my preference for video game leans more on the side of Halo than Yakuza 0, just like putting it in general. I lost so much of my fucking life playing Triple Triad, and like, I played Final Fantasy VIII for the first time when I was a kid, and then I kept trying to replay it, and failed because I got stuck at the first person you can get Minimog from for a Triple Triad card, and I just kept playing and reloading until I got it, and then I had spent like 3 hours playing Triple Triad, and I was like, oh, I'm tired now, and I just never got back to it. So this game ruined my life. It's great. I love it so much. There's a reason Final Fantasy XIV copied it. It's fantastic. It's the best. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Yeah, you're next. Yeah, go.
Yep. Go.
Oh, God.
It says no.
There it goes. There it goes.
All right. Squall is the best Final Fantasy protagonist. I'm going to tell you why. If you disagree, fight me. Disclaimer: do not actually want you to fight me because that's kind of rude.
She would win.
I would win. Absolutely, I would win. So I had to make the joke here. Okay, so everybody always complains about Squall and how he's whiny or a jerk or how he's emo, whatever the fuck they always say about him. We're always in his head. We're always hearing his thoughts. Do you have the nicest thoughts about every single fucking person you meet? No, probably not. You probably don't. And so we are hearing every single thought that this 17-year-old kid is having who's going through the wildest stuff in the universe. We're going to have some situations where he's kind of sucky. Yeah, he's kind of a douche. Like, that's okay. Everybody has that. The thing is, we hear his thoughts. We didn't have that with previous Final Fantasies for the most part. So this was actually an internal monologue that we're getting. We're getting a lot of how he feels. And so that's why that whole emotion comes up, is that Squall is actually having these emotions. We're seeing them. We're hearing them. You have to deal with what he's feeling, and that's new and exciting. He's a leader, and he wants his team to come away alive. So there are moments where he's an absolute dick to Renoa, like absolute dick. If you think about the time in front of the TV screen where she's trying to think on the fly, well, how do we revise this plan? And he's like, no, this is stupid. You can't do this. You can't just revise a plan on the fly. Like, what is going on here? And I mean, he's right. He is somebody who's leading a team who is putting their lives on the line, and he's feeling like their lives are being trivialized. So he's being a good leader, but he's also thinking about his training. He wants everybody to come home alive. He's also supportive in the ways he knows how to be. So he's not good at talking to people. Like, I don't know if you've actually played the game, but he's not good at it. But he really does try. And so the scene that I think of the most is the scene with Irvine, however you want to say his name.
Do you not know how to pronounce that one? You know,
No.
Keistis, but not.
Keistis is easier than this one. Irvine?
Yeah, wait. Canonically, here at MAGWest, it's Irvine. We're establishing that now.
Irvine, all right. So the scene with Irvine where he's trying to encourage him to make the shot against Adia, this is one of his best scenes because he realizes, okay, Irvine's going through it right now. He's struggling, which, if you remember my slide from the beginning, this is because he remembers the situation. He knows who she is. He is having basically stage fright because like, I have to kill my mother. This is fucked. So Squall talks him through it and basically says like, okay, look, we're going to reframe this situation. We're going to think of this as a signal. This is all it is. You don't have to have this pressure on you. You're good. Think of it as a signal. And if you pay attention to the CG, Irvine would have made that shot if she had not blocked it. So Squall did a good job here. Just saying. He's a traumatized sad boy. He's going through it, man. Literally the screenshot that I have, I don't want to depend on anyone. How can I do that? He's in the fetal position in his like shitty camo bed. Like, oh my God. He is so traumatized. You have so many scenes of him going and thinking about Elan and how he was abandoned as a child. He's an orphan. He was abandoned by his sister, his big sis. He was abandoned by his mother figure. He's a child soldier. And then he's just thrown into the situation where he has to, one, listen to this person who he's not sure even cares about their lives. And two, then he's put into a leadership position over every fucking person in that garden which is terrifying when you're 17 years old. I don't know if you remember being 17, but that's a lot. So he is traumatized. He's sad. He's going through it. And again, you're in his head, so you're experiencing every single feeling that he's having. And that's good. And get you a man who jumps into literal space for you without a plan. So this is the part where we have a shift in who he is and what he's thinking. Wow, he fell in love with Renoa. Imagine that. And so he doesn't really think rationally when it comes to her anymore. He doesn't have that whole everybody's got to come home alive thing. He's mainly, I don't care if I die, I have to go to her. This ruined how I think about romance for like the rest of my life. Because get you a man who jumps into literal space without a plan for you. Come on. He grows as a person, and that's good. Throughout the game, he actually goes through so much emotional growth. You see him open up to people. There's a scene that I showed earlier where he's literally excited that everybody made it out of the missile base mission. He is very, very good. And we get a smile. We get a smile out of him. Look at that. This is a happy boy now. A happy boy. He's doing okay. If you want to read more about Squall, scan this bad boy here.
My God.
I wrote a whole article about this. Do it, you cowards.
I've got a hot take, but I'll let people take their pictures first. Thank you for doing that. This was outside. Say again. This was on your personal blog before we even started the blog.
This is on my
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're early covers of this shit.
Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time, man.
We met at MAGFest years ago and bonded over this. Like
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so
Um,
it looks like people have taken
What's
the
that?
pic.
That's a turret.
Oh, thank you.
It looks like people took photos, so I have to ask.
Yeah, do it, you
what the
guys.
fuck's with Fujin in this game? I don't know what the hell's going on. Okay, for those who don't know, Fujin is a 13-year-old, 15-year-old girl with gray hair and a red eye and an eye patch, and she only speaks by screaming single-word sentences. It's never explained or commented on. It's like a Twin Peaks character going into Final Fantasy VIII. She is the greatest. I fucking love her. I've been threatening to do a Fujin cosplay for a long time, and 1 year it's going to happen.
Do it.
I need to do it.
Do it,
I
you
need to
coward.
fucking do it.
Do it, you coward. Do it.
What? Okay, fine. I don't know how to fucking sew. You have to help me.
I will help you.
Okay, good.
Halloween's next month.
I can't do it that quickly.
I have to launch the library. I got too much to do right now.
Excuses.
You're next. Yeah.
Okay. The dichotomy of really fucked up situations and more ordinary teenage situations like falling in love is very good. Has anyone here read or watched Battle Royale?
Yes.
All right. It has the exact same dynamic here. You have situations where people are trying to literally murder each other, but then they're also like confessing their love to each other. So you have situations like this cutscene, which is beautiful, and if you haven't watched it in a long time, you should, because this guy fucking clotheslines that guy on the motorcycle with a gun blade, and that's cool as hell. But this is also one of the best scenes to demonstrate what I'm talking about, because you have the Battle of the Garden going on. You have this beautiful FMV, and then you shift, and it's Skull and Renoa talking about how she's going to get a copy of his ring. And it would be crazy if people thought that they were dating, right? Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, you literally just saw a man get probably decapitated with a gun blade. And now you're like, oh, yeah, but romance, right? Right? So I love that. I love that dichotomy because it's showing, like, while they're going through these really, really fucked situations, while this is all extremely terrible, they're still having these moments of, like, they're 17 years old. They're still doing the things that 17-year-olds would do. They would trade rings. That's normal. They would do the cutesy, like, oh, wouldn't that be weird? Ha, ha, ha. Like, that's really, really great. Shit. Did you really use this song?
Lagoon is a beautiful man.
He is a beautiful man. He's a himbo. I love him to bits. In his room, we stand Laguna. I just want to say it. Also, I love this song.
I was listening to it while I was finishing the slides, and I was like, I'm going to sing this into your slides in the last second.
Beautiful, beautiful. Laguna is great. Also, Doom Train exists.
Oh, yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Can you suplex it?
You cannot, but it fucking rules and it can destroy things, and that's awesome. And the only person that should have it is Selfie.
She likes trains, it's true.
She likes
it comes up
trains.
multiple times that she likes trains.
I like the train.
I like
Thank
trains.
you, exactly. All right, we're going to head things back here. for final part. If you don't like Final Fantasy VIII, you're a coward. You specifically in panels 2, you are a coward. All right, for those who came late, obviously this panel is not about Final Fantasy VII, but I want to talk from the heart for a second. For this last part, I want to talk about what this game has meant to me, what it's meant, what's meant to you. And so I'm going to talk sincerely for a second. This is off the cuff. I've not. Yeah, enjoy. So it never hits the corner. Just don't get excited. But I have really not prepared a whole lot for this section. I have some general notes, but I just want to talk off the cuff for a second. I don't know about you, but this game came out 25 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 25 years ago. I played this game when it came out and I was like 9 or 10, and then I played it again a couple years ago when I was living in Maryland. I moved out here to California to work for the Video Game History Foundation, and it was a really tough transition. I'm still kind of going through it, but it was, leaving all my friends and where I had lived for a decade and a half and moving out here. And I played Final Fantasy VIII again, and I was really shocked to find it was a different game than the one I had originally played in some ways. I think, and this music just genuinely gets to me. It's just beautiful music in this game, so I'll still play over this part. It just genuinely hit me how the emotional level of the game. When I played it the first time, I loved it because it was insane. I loved it because you have a weapon where you shoot a dog off your arm, and you go into space, and there's time travel romance, and all the stuff happens. And I thought that was great. And looking at the stories I made up when I was a kid, it was very heavily influenced by that. But going back to it as an adult who's lived a life now, I'm struck by how strong the emotional core of the game is, and thinking about the criticisms people have of the game, how much of it is rooted in reading it as literal fact, I guess. Of people who look at the game and think, oh, this doesn't make sense because this is too chaotic, and why do they do X, Y, Z? But a story isn't a wiki. It's not just, you don't read it like it's the Silmarillion. It's not just like this appendix of information. This is a game that's really about emotional truth and not literal truth. And going back to it now as an adult, it's so clear that, all the stuff with the sorceresses is great, but the love story is the story of the game. And playing it again, it's so obvious that the core of it is, it's Squall Renoa. And I think it's not that the game itself is now a richer text than it was 25 years ago. Kind of sort of that word, 25 years ago. But it's really that I've changed, and as a kid, I didn't get that. It didn't land with me. Going back to it now, it does. And I was just blown away by this bit later on in the game where she says, "You're the one that changes, not the past." And that just really hit me from that. I think part of it is like like Squall, I've kind of undergone my own emotional journey. I think I've spent, largely the last decade of my life in a process of kind of rebuilding myself and going through therapy, and I've had some rough times the last couple years before, and I've gone through that experience of kind of realizing, thinking about what my relationship with my friends is and what matters to me. And I don't know if folks here, has anyone gone through something similar to that? You in the back, you just won another copy of Final Fantasy VIII!
In Japanese!
In Japanese, thank you much.
Yeah, good luck with that. But the point is, sincerely, maybe it's something you've gone through too. So, if you go through this game now, maybe the experience of it changes for you as well. That's what the game is about. It's about that growth. It's about becoming a new person and what it means to find yourself in a new situation, what your relationship is with people around you, what your values are, and that's what the game is about. It's about that transition. I think that's beautiful. I think that's really something unique that I like Final Fantasy VII, even though I ripped off the shirt earlier, but I think this is something that I think is still genuinely missing from a lot of games, and I think a lot of the backlash is the fact that it's such an emotionally sincere video game in a way that doesn't click, I think, with a lot of people. I think there are people who have played it here. If you haven't played it since it came out, this isn't a bit or anything, go back and play it. I think it's much more obvious that it is this strongly emotional game. And I think, if you're someone who's ever gone on this kind of personal journey, kind of going through therapy and figuring out who you are in life and what's happening, going back to this game, I think this is a good reason to play it. I think if you've never played it, that's a good reason to play it for the first time. You find yourself reflecting on those things about your life. This is a really good game to accompany those kind of changes. And if you're someone who, hasn't experienced that kind of thing, and maybe played this game and it didn't click with you, I think, I'm not saying this in a mean, negative way. I think there's so much stigma around things like therapy and all that stuff, but I think it's worth getting in touch with yourself and thinking about what is important to you. Maybe it is worth figuring out how your brain wakes and what brain works and what your values are, and going through that same journey Squall went to. I think it's such a very different game when you play it before or after that. And if you've done all of that and you still don't like Final Fantasy VIII, go to hell! That's all we had. Thank you. Thank you for coming to this incredibly stupid panel. I don't know how to do Q&A for this, so I think we're just going to stop it. So,
If you want to ask a question, please do. But yeah, like.
I have a question.
yes.
So you
And then you got one.
You pointed
I
out
thought you were
quite.
gonna take-
You pointed out
yeah.
quite well that the revisionist history of this game is what was the downfall of its history, or what we look back on it.
Yeah.
So, given that, and that you're also citing YouTube videos from how many years ago? 14 years ago.
17, 20 years ago. Yeah.
So now we're in modern age and going forward. So revisionist history. What do you think that portends for society at large?
Ooh.
Oh my God, you're going deep with these questions.
I think part of it is, honestly, I use the word historiography on purpose because I think, that, again, that at the Video Game History Foundation, again, on my horse about this, I think one of the things we don't have is we don't have a strong understanding of how things happen. I think it's easy to look back. I gave the example of the panel earlier about we have a press kit for the Power Glove, and that's something that I think is often treated as a joke. The Maid had a panel earlier about controllers, and everyone laughed at the Power Glove. It's very silly, but at the time, it meant something different than what people are treating it as now in retrospect with the Wizard and all that stuff. And I think that's the key to so much wrong is a weird way to put it, but I feel like there's so many things that are improved with context and understanding. People often ask me where it's like, how do you fight disinformation? How do you deal with, like, AI telling you to eat glue pizzas and shit? And I think so much of that is understanding where information came from and how it was formed. And I think that's something, as an information scientist, as someone with a library degree, is really important to me, is being able to reference and understand that context and things not existing in a vacuum. Like, so I wrote this, if you remember last year, there was a study that came out that said that 87% of video games are out of print. I wrote that study. That was my work. But all the volunteers who helped with it too. But I remember when we put it out, we said, at some point, this is going to get lost in context. People are going to get the information wrong. They're just going to repeat this and not know where it came from. That's already happened. But it's so important to me when you have information like that to be able to track it back and understand it. So that's why we have things like the Internet Archive and libraries and all these organizations trying to make these things accessible. I think that's important because I think it helps fight disinformation. I think it helps people realize where they came from in the same way that people invest in, like, genealogy to understand their own family history. I think it's worth doing that for cultural history too. And you're also a cultural historian, so. Okay. Yes, question.
Power Glove sucked though.
Well, we are not debating the merits of the Power Glove in this panel.
Ask me about Power Glove after the thing. So on that note, for reviews,
Yeah.
Oftentimes games are updated and they remove features, like they remove music or they come out and they break mechanics and.
What was that version of Crazy Taxi where they got rid of the Offspring? Like, why would you even play
That
the
was
game?
a re-release.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
okay,
no,
okay,
exactly,
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, but you're talking actual, like, updates. Okay, yeah.
But when people update their reviews where it's like, hey, this game sucks now, you lose the original review. Is there anything for, like, asking these platforms to preserve the original reviews at the time they came out so that you can continue doing this kind of research?
It's really tough, and it keeps me awake at night with things like Steam. If folks remember earlier this year when all the Adult Swim games got delisted, and then some of them went back up on Steam, but those original stores shut down, so, like, I don't know if you can access those reviews anymore. I don't know if they have that original page still. That kind of stuff keeps me up at night, and I don't have a great solution to it. What I've been turning to is the idea of empowering communities on this stuff, where I think, like, a central organization like the Internet Archive can't capture everything. It's impossible to do that. But I think it's the kind of thing where it's like, if there is a Final Fantasy VIII fan community, I think capturing what happens in the moment is very important. Like, the fighting game community, for example. It's not quite reviews, but, like, the way that the metas change over time and what games are hot change over time, that's something you can capture by doing oral histories and by the community keeping its own history. There's a great historian who was at MAGFest Super last year, AJ Rappaport, who did this book just about the culture of Smash Melee, like interviewing players there and, like, understanding their relationship with the hardware in that moment, and, like, as GameCube controllers are running out, and, like, how they respond to that kind of thing. I think at a certain point we have to get comfortable with the idea of data loss. I think it's inevitable, but I think you can capture narrative, you can capture how people were feeling about things in a way that's a little more easily transmutable, if that makes sense, than trying to figure out how to, like, siphon data out of the Steam API or something like that. I think it's the same way with, like, Fortnite. Like, we're never going to be able to preserve Fortnite as an object. I think it's trying to figure out how to capture the spirit and the conversation around it and getting comfortable with the idea that things might disappear.
I mean, I did something with Final Fantasy X too that was very similar with this, to see what the reviews were, to see what people's perspectives were on Final Fantasy X too, which I have another hot take that's actually a really good game. But if you go back and look at the reviews, it's not the same situation as this. There are some really, really negative reviews of Final Fantasy X too. And so I have an article where I actually preserve a lot of those old comments. So if they ever do go down, at least there is an article with some of that content. So historians are doing some of this work at least.
There is so much stuff that I feel like it only gets saved because somebody copied it into a post somewhere or put it in a YouTube video. Like, genuinely.
Yeah, no, it's no lie. It's no lie.
If you want to preserve video game history, go to your favorite community forum and see what people were saying about it and write a blog post about it.
People are abandoning forums for Discord. It sucks.
That's a whole separate panel. That's the 2 a.m. what the fuck are we gonna do panel, but separate panel. There were some turds in that pool, people who were very upset about that game. That really, split things up. But as we saw, small fraction compared to the overwhelmingly positive response. That's all we got.
Everybody
Go to hell.
Go to hell.
Go to hell. Thank you for putting up with our shenanigans. This was really
Yay.
fun and stupid. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.